Everybody, today we are going to learn about making patterns in Illustrator, and we're going to learn various techniques to do so. And this kind of piggybacks on our last couple talks. Mainly we are going to use the basics of Illustrator, and by creating patterns you're going to learn more about navigating around the Illustrator interface. Alright, let's get started. So to start, we're going to go ahead and open up our Adobe Illustrator, and I have mine here. I went ahead and already reset my Essentials panel. Now we're going to open this up and we're going to start with a new blank document. Now our new blank document, we can keep any settings we'd like. You'll see a lot of tutorials where they basically make this equal like 11 by 11 or whatnot. I don't need to do that because I'm going to show you a few different ways. Alright, so we opened up our artboard and our canvas is ready to go, and we're going to kind of keep our layers palette open over here. And we're ready. So let's go ahead and start by just making a simple pattern. And I'm going to need a couple of things. I'm going to need my rectangle tool. And in my rectangle tool, I'm going to go ahead and just draw, holding Shift on my keyboard to constrain it, a box. We're going to rename this layer box. Now it doesn't really matter what you name these, but I'm going to go ahead and lock that for the time being. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. Drag that under and call it content. Alright, now we get to make our beginnings of our pattern. You could fill this box with pretty much whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and just fill it with some random shapes. So I'm going to take some colors from my color palette here, and I'm going to hold Shift again, and I'm going to draw some shapes. And this is going to be very, very important to get the right kind of shape. I think I want an ellipse. That's what I want. There we go. Alright. So I have the ellipse shape, and what I've done here is my content is behind the white box. So that's why you guys can't see it. So I need to drag it above for the time being. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of keep everything in the constraints of the box. Now, this is a very important step I'm about to do. I'm going to hold down my Alt key, an Option key on a Mac, and I'm going to hold it down and click and drag. What this is going to do is make an exact duplicate. Alright, and if I hold it down again, you'll see I can toggle between the duplicates, and I'm going to go ahead and make kind of four corners here, cover this. Alright, let's go back and let's get a new color here, and I'm going to drag, kind of holding Shift, this circle in the middle, get my selection tool. And I can even use my arrow keys and move this down a little bit. And we will create, maybe, I don't know, keep them kind of in the realm of primary colors, but maybe like a yellow. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is kind of center align this. I could use my alignment tools. I'm going to just kind of eyeball it here. I have the basic pattern I like. Very simple. It's no bells and whistles. We'll get into fancy stuff later. It kind of looks like something from IKEA. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead now and move the box back on top of it. Now this is very important. Get the layer to actually click there. There we go. The reason I put this box on top of it is because I'm going to use this box to cut out my swatch, so to speak. So right now I don't have any overlapping content. I could just make a pattern right now, but I'm going to do this in case you wanted to, for instance, let me go in here real quick and switch them back. Let's say you wanted to have your box, let's see, back here, there we go. Let's say you wanted to have your box kind of overlap. You wanted to have these kind of come out here. I have my smart guides on. Those things are awesome, as you guys probably already know. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to kind of make our pattern a little uglier, but that's okay. So now I have my box. What I'm going to do is select my content, and holding Shift, I'm going to select my box. I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to gravitate down to Clipping Mask, and then I'm going to hit Make. Now what this will do is exactly that. It uses the box as a cookie cutter. It cuts it. So let's go back once more. I select my content first. Click. Holding Shift, because that will add to my selection, I select my box. Object, Clipping Mask, Make. And what that's done is kind of, it's still there, it's just hiding via the box there, you guys can see, and I have a clip right there. So it's hiding inside of that box. Well, this is good for us because what we want to do now is take the content of the box and navigate to our Swatches panel. You can also find your swatches in the Window Swatches area. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate open this, and this is real easy. I'm going to just click and drag into my panel, and it makes a little itty bitty icon. I'm done with this. I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to hit delete. Now, here comes the fun part. Whenever I create a shape, for instance, I create a large rectangle here, and if I want to fill it with a color, normally I would just go and fill it with a swatch, I can now fill it with my pattern. And you can see I overlapped that pattern, so it gave me kind of a very strange effect within it. Well, that's okay. I can drag this out again, and I can edit it more if I'd like, so I can get in there and kind of play with it more, and that will give me all the content that I was looking for, so it's not kind of untouchable. But that's the basic start of a pattern. Well, to be honest with you, it's a long way to get a final result. So Illustrator has developed methods to kind of help us along the way and see our results. Before we get to those super quick and easy methods, I want to show you some other methods that will help streamline your workflow. So I don't need this anymore, and I actually don't need, I'm going to just create a new layer here and delete our old ones, drag them to the trash can. And the next one I want to teach you guys about is I want to teach you about the blend tool. And the blend tool is really great for pattern making. So I'm going to get an ellipse, and I'm going to make an ellipse here. And I think I'm going to do a gradient on this ellipse. I could do a gradient, I could do a lighter color, but we're going to kind of create a gradient in a different way. So I'm not going to go to my Gradients tab. I'm going to hold my Option key, and I'm going to use Smart Guides, and I'm going to shoot down this way. And I'm going to make this ball a little smaller. Alright, this color, I want a little bit darker. As it gets smaller, maybe it gets darker. Alright, now the blend tool is really awesome. Let's say I wanted to create a string of circles that kind of went boom, 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 all the way down. To do that traditionally, it would take forever. I don't have time for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually blend them together. If you guys are familiar with Adobe Flash, it's called a shape tween in Flash. Well, we're going to kind of have the computer do the work for us. And that will also, you'll notice, do some fun effects like change the color. So I'm going to select them both using my selection tool, or my V key on my keyboard, and I'm going to go and blend them. Now, I do have Object Blend right here. I don't go to this initially. I like to go to the actual tool, which is W on your keyboard. If I double click on this tool, I get some options. And let's take a look at these. Now, your options may say smooth color, specified steps, or specified distance. I'm going to use specified steps for this. I'm going to use the orientation, and I'm going to say I want 8 versions of this circle. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Nothing happens. Now we have to use this. So we can use it two ways. I can go to Object, Blend, Make. It does it. Nothing too bad. Or if I'm adventurous, I get my tool and I click, drag to the little dot, and then click and drag back. And it does the same thing. So what this has done is really cool. You can see it's changing the amount of spacing between these elements. And it's not absolutely perfect, but it could kind of look really cool. So now, what if we wanted to duplicate all these downward? And we can do this. We can traditionally go in and kind of duplicate them. That's, again, too hard. There's an easier way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and use an effect. Now, we haven't used effects really yet, but we're going to go and we're going to try to figure out which effect would help us move or transform these objects. Well, immediately you'll see you have a distort and transform effect. And we're going to go to the transform. Now, to use this, you have to have your blends highlighted. And notice I didn't add anything. I didn't expand my blends. I could have made them all separate shapes that I could go back and re-edit, but I didn't. I just kept it how it was. We're going to hit transform. We're going to open up our effect here, and we have all sorts of stuff. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to turn on preview. And when I turn on preview, nothing happens. Most people would quit at this point and go, okay, I did something wrong. Well, we have some things we need to tell this effect because they don't know what we want to do with it. So the first thing is I want 5 copies. So immediately when I have 5 copies, again, you see nothing happens. Well, I haven't told it anywhere to move. So what you're really seeing right now is 5 instances or copies of these little dots on top of one another. And here, I'm going to move them in the vertical palette. And maybe I'll give them an inch distance each, relatively. Alright, I can mess with the horizontal, and I can kind of offset them. That's kind of neat too. I'm going to keep that at 0 though, 0 inches. There we go. Now, I can also mess with the scale. So this is really where you get into some fun stuff. So if I put 50 and 50, I can get an odd pattern. I mean, that honestly looks terrible, but you may want to do this. I could have them shrink down and so forth. I think I like mine at 100%. But what you guys can see is something pretty cool happens. All of a sudden you have a nice reflection. We can mirror them. That's a pretty cool pattern. We can reflect them. Wouldn't really work in this case. We can scale them if we had strokes. We can randomize them. But I think I'm gonna stick with reflect because this looks pretty neat. I'm gonna hit OK. And now what we have is we have one object and the rest will go with it. Now if you were paying attention to the last lecture, what you'll notice is, well, you can make that a pattern. Done. So anytime you draw, for instance, maybe a rectangle and you want that pattern in there, now you can get that pattern to repeat. No matter how big that rectangle is, that pattern constantly repeats. And it's a really, really nice kind of touch to it. So that's a really, really good thing. Now if I want to move these and I want to give a little more randomness to these, really simple. Basically I just go to my blend and I hit expand. Once I expand my blend, I now have the ability to kind of nudge specific pieces. So if I take this and nudge it, you can see it moves everything else kind of within distance for it. So I can kind of adjust this and kind of have some fun with it. You can see it's kind of squashing and stretching there, which is pretty funny. But overall, I can kind of put it where I like it. Really quick way to make your workflow go faster. All right, so that was the basics. We made a couple patterns. They're really, kind of gross looking and fun stuff like that. Well, what I want you guys to do is I want you to create your own sketch. Sketch out a piece of your pattern. I want you to put that sketch into your computer, and I want you to trace over it in Illustrator. And I want you to make your own custom pattern. And you're going to see a lot of this on the tutorials I provide, the outer link tutorials. There's thousands of tutorials on patterns. I'm kind of giving you guys the sum of all of those tutorials with what we're talking about today. So if you thought this was an easy way, wait till you see the next way we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and let's make a new document. All right, and I actually have a document already made with some patterns in here. And I have, you can see a flourish, and I have this crazy pattern. We're going to start with the flourish, okay? And we're going to go ahead and open this. And what it is a sketch I found, and I traced it and made it vector. You can see there's thousands and thousands of anchor points. It's not exactly the smallest file, but for vector's sake, but it works. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to hold Option. Kind of get this down really small. And there was a reason I want a small pattern. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate this. And we'll put it like this. And now I'm going to transform it. I'm going to use a different type of transform. I'm going to just use the reflect. And the reflect's really nice because it gives me kind of the option to, just flip it. This looks great. Absolutely wonderful. I'm going to highlight them both. And now Illustrator Cs6 is really, really up their game. What they have under the object menu for us is the pattern tool. Now watch this. Basically, like the blend tool, make means it's going to do the function. Well, we're going to make whatever we have selected into a pattern. And it's going to give you a warning. So anytime you see this, it says the new pattern will be added to the Swatches panel. It's going to show up here. Any changes while in editing mode will be applied upon the swatch and exit. So this isn't going to change until you exit out this program. That's fine. I would honestly put don't show again, but for demo's sake, I'm going to keep that up in case we have to do it again here. All right, when I do that, you're going to see something pretty cool, aren't you? All of a sudden, it made a pattern. It just started repeating it. It lets us see it ahead of time, something the original pattern tool didn't allow us to do. So what I'm going to do is play with these options, and you can see this little screen called Pattern Options comes up, one of which is the Pattern Tile tool. And this will allow us to deal with spacing. So if I want more spacing on one side, I can do so, and so forth. Or if I want only half of this to show, kind of them to overlap, I can do that as well. Now, I personally like this pattern as it is now. So we have pattern tile types. Tiling is basically when you seamlessly repeat a texture. Well, what's seamlessly mean? A seamless texture is like basically they match up perfectly. There's no overlapping, there's no break in the texture, there's not like a little chunk of this missing because it kind of got cropped off. And we have options to do that. We have grid, we have brick, give that a second to kind of tile it. We have column brick, which we were kind of looking at anyway. We have hexagon, which was one of my favorites. This one looks really cool. We're going to probably use that one. And we have hex by row. That one looks a little messy. We'd have to play at this point with our tile tool. And you guys can see what happens when I start moving it. There you go, it'll start spreading out. Really great results though. Alright, so you'll notice by the brick, by the way, you have the offset. So if you really wanted to offset this, you could offset this by quite a bit, so they're not like right lined up on top of each other. You can make yourself a vector brick wall. Again, we're going to go with the hexagon. I think it's the coolest of the two, and it gives the most visual impact. Now, our width is dealing with this box. We have the size tile to art, which we can do. And that will kind of size it to our artboard. I kind of like having these extra flourishes kind of hanging out, so I keep those there. We have overlapping. This will allow us to either put one in front, one in back. It will kind of intertwine them, which you guys can see, and I'm going to zoom in here. Let's see if I can get zoomed in. Look at this. There we go. How awesome is this? Let's go ahead and flip it. Look at this area. You can see you really get some cool depth. We have top and front, back and bottom. Anything you really want to do, play around with it. We have copies. That's going to be how deep the row is going to be. So I have to zoom out to show you this one. But right now it's 5 by 5. If I want it 9 by 9, I can do that. It's going to take a while. If I want it to be 3 by 1, I can do that too. Kind of make a border or something like that. I'm going to keep it 5 by 5. I dug that. Now, another cool step is, what if I want to change color? Well, I have two of them. I duplicated it, remember? What I can do here is I'm going to go ahead and see if this will work. I'm going to put a stroke on this. So I'm going to open a swatch library and I'll do Baroque. Get some Baroque colors going in here. And I can drag those over my swatch panel, make some room. I'm going to highlight with my selection tool. I'm going to highlight this one. And what we want to do is we want to change the color of these. Now what you're going to see is, well, we have a problem. Immediately we have a problem. And this problem is, this is covering our pattern, our really nice pattern. So what I want to do is a little trick. I'm going to highlight this again. Just actually scroll over it. There we go. All right. I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to copy it and actually paste it in place. So edit, copy, paste in place. Paste in front would actually be great. And I'm going to change this to that green again. Okay. And now it still looks bad, but I'm going to go to my transparency palette right here. What this is going to do is going to open up a whole new world for us. I'm going to set it to multiply. And with multiply, all of a sudden you will see it blends the two together. I can even lower the opacity if it's too strong of a green. I kind of like a little creepy kind of old style offset, so I think I'm going to go like 70% here so it's not so vivid. But it allows us to really, really have an amazing pattern here. So at this point, I really like the pattern. Now, I can even, if it's slowing down, you can see my computer is pretty fast and it's slowing down. I can check dim copies, and this just will allow me to kind of select the two individual ones. But using the transparency palette is an awesome tool And using your blending modes is even better because you can do some really amazing techniques. For instance, I just screened it, so I lightened them. Again, we'll go back to multiply and kind of, I like the darkness here. All right, now that we have that, all you have to do is hit done. Real simple. It's going to take a second. It goes away. Don't worry though. In your swatches panel, you should have a pretty nice swatch. So now when you draw a shape, you get a nice background. And if you really want to get ambitious, you can do the following. I'm going to delete those. And again, anytime you want to mess with it, just drag it out of the pattern, and there they are again. You can kind of go and play with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, I don't know, like a purplish background. Draw out a square here, a rectangle I should say. And you know what, let's add a gradient to this background. But you know, we could add a gradient this way. That could be fine. We could use our transparency palette now too, can't we? I'm going to do a radial though. And with my radial, I'm going to go ahead and kind of go in here. Now if you don't see your colors, don't worry. It's a little Illustrator pain in the butt kind of thing to play around with. But we're going to have to get our swatches out here eventually. So let's go back to our gradient tool here and double click, and then we can kind of figure out where everything is. Eventually you'll find it where it says CMYK, and now you can kind of set the colors here. So I'm going to set it to a very dark purple, kind of like that, and I don't like it being totally white, so I'll go to my hidden menu, CMYK. I'm going to do kind of a lighter purple, kind of appearing blue on my screen. I don't know why, but that's okay. There it is. It's like I'm making a Taco Bell commercial, apparently. All right. So I have that. I can go to my gradient tool, all things we've learned in previous lessons, and I can adjust, you know, the softness of this or the stretch of this. I think I'm going to keep it very subtle like that. So that's the first thing. Let's look at our layers. There it is. I'm going to lock that layer so I don't mess with this. Now I'm going to draw another rectangle. And it's going to be roughly the same exact size. Now this other rectangle, I don't want another gradient. What I want to do is, I want to put my pattern in it. So let's go back to swatches. Let's hit pattern. Let's hit it. And it's looking cool. I like the way it turned out, but it's a little, I want them to blend with the purple more. That's when we go back to our good old transparency palette. Now, if you're wondering where your transparency palette is, it's located right here. So if I clicked away here, I actually double clicked by accident, it's right here. It's with your gradients, it's with your stroke palette. If you want to change the weight of a stroke, you can do that, and so forth. I'm going to set this whole pattern to multiply, and then all of a sudden, I get a really cool appearance. And I can lower the opacity, and I can really customize my artwork. And that is essentially the ease that you can make a really spectacular pattern. Now again, what I suggest for you guys to go above and beyond is I want you to draw something physically on paper, take it into the computer, vectorize it, then go through these pattern making processes. Say that 5 times fast. It basically will give you a really, really awesome result, and it will look like nothing else that's out there right now. And you could use these on websites, on wedding invitations, on greeting cards, you name it. But now you have it. And at any point, if I don't like the way my vignette is looking, so to speak, I can go ahead and kind of unlock it here, select that object, go to my specific palettes, and I can turn it down. Okay. Actually, I totally turned it off here, but go to that. There we go. And I can lower it down a little bit. So not too bad. Okay, so that's one way. That looks pretty cool. Now what if you have a complex vector object even with different colors? Right now this was black and white. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have this one, and we're going to save this file so you guys remember. We're going to call this Flourish Finish. Alliteration day here on our tutorials. And we're going to hit save. And I'll provide these files for you guys, so don't worry. Save it off and just let it kind of run through its thing. Let's open a new file. I'm going to open pattern start. Now I found this pattern, it's kind of like a hodgepodge of patterns I found online, But I decided to go ahead and make it really, really intense. I have gradients going on there. I have multiple holes in it and whatnot. If I move it to the side, you'll see the negative space there where the gray is coming through. I have strokes. I really basically loaded this up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make kind of a cool pattern. So I have options. I can do this. I can do the blend tool. I can make it traditionally. I'm going to use, again, the pattern tool. So I'm going to highlight it. And you can see it's very complex, but I'm going to hit make. And it's going to give me that good old warning. I set mine to dim. And now I have the ability to kind of play with this. So hexagon was the one you guys know, it's my go-to, my favorite. That will give us more of an overlapping pattern. I just kind of dig that. We can do bricks. In this case, bricks look pretty cool. We have the ability to kind of tell them how much space to put through it. Again, we have simple grids as well. So if you want to do simple grids, what we can do is, actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll do a grid. I changed my mind again. We'll do a brick. It looks cooler. All right. What we're going to do is save this off. So again, very simple. It retains everything. I can go ahead and I can duplicate this. Now, if I duplicate this, it overlaps. It gets really, really intense. I'm going to right-click, transform, and we'll reflect it, just attempting to crash the computer. And we may crash it. If it crashes, I'm not going to pause it or do any fancy things. I'm going to just let it run because that's what's going to happen with you guys. So now there's a problem. Well, it looks muddy. Well, that's because I need to get my tool and I need to tell it, you know what, that's part of the pattern now. So now what you can see, and it's chugging, don't get me wrong, there it is. Now it's starting to move. Now, check this out. It opens up a little more. And I'm going to make sure it's open and it's visible on every single one. And I'm looking now at brick. I don't know if I dig it. It looks a little weird. Maybe we'll go back to grid. Maybe go hex by row and get it some angles. But if you do this, again, not a bad thing. Just remember you're going to have to kind of set up parameters. There we go. That's looking cool. Now this is overlapping. That's why it's looking a little weird. Basically, this is telling us keep everything you want in here, and you'll get a somewhat decent result. Doesn't always work, but it's looking like it's giving us a good result here. When I'm done, we'll go ahead and hit done. We have our pattern. We can delete that complex shape just to show you it's not in here anymore. It went away. And we can make any shape now. I didn't really talk about this last time, but if I go to the star tool, for instance, and make a giant star, right now it's filled with white. I can fill it with any color I want. Make it like a Mario star, whatever I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and fill it with my pattern. Swatches, pattern, there we go. And you can see it retains the transparency too. Now, no matter how much I add to this, what I'm going to do is not delete it. And by the way, this is isolation mode. If you end up double-clicking something and getting into it, just keep hitting the arrow and you'll get out. It's not a big deal. I'm going to hit the A key here just to open this up for you guys. You see the pattern, it's almost like it's making a clipping mask, isn't it? And we have the ability to kind of go in and still shape our outside shape and our pattern and all that fun stuff. If we want to do the kind of a similar thing as we did with the floral, this is floral, but you guys get what I mean. The floral pattern, we can do that as well. So let's go ahead and make a box. Draw that out. We'll go ahead and make it, let's make it some sort of, I don't know. I want to make it like an off yellow, but I'm not too really fond with that. There we go. That's good. That's pretty cool. And I'm going to do a duplicate, copy, paste in front, just showing you a different way to do it. And I'm going to set that as a radial. And I'm going to go to transparency and set that as multiply. It looks really bad at this point, so I'm going to lower the opacity a little bit and kind of play with that gradient because that's pretty ridiculous. And at this point in the gradient, what I need to do is actually set it to kind of a darker black, grayish. I don't like having my gradients like so far apart, they look so weird. It just doesn't work for me. So even if I do a color in there, that looks good. I dig that. All right, and we'll make this higher. All right, next step, same thing. I can actually just duplicate this box. So copy, paste influence, looks great. Everything's fun. I don't want a gradient in this one, do I? So I go to my Swatches panel, make sure it's selected, do that, and then all of a sudden, you guys go to your transparency. We'll start having some pretty darn amazing effects going on. And these effects can be accessed pretty easily. We have obviously all of our paths and whatnot, which we can kind of put on top. We can switch around. Here's my path menu. You just simply have to select it, go back to your menu, and kind of fiddle around to where you like it. And when you're all said and done, you'll get a pretty cool result. And as you can see, now I have exactly that. I have a nice kind of wallpaper. It's kind of eerie and whatnot. I don't know. It reminds me of the Haunted Mansion at Disney. I really don't know what's going on here with it. But I have the ability to change all my color modes. Now it's the 70s. That's kind of weird. And get really cool effects. Look at that one. Look at overlay. That's cool. Soft light brings in that light from the background. Hard light really makes it back to neon. We have color, which is just wrong. Luminosity looks really cool. Even though I took all my color away, that really actually looks really quite beautiful. So I may use that one and kind of turn down the opacity. Anyway, this is the basics of patterns. You're going to be required to create a pattern of your own, and I want to see as much originality, as much hand-drawn traditional art turned into digital art as you possibly can. So make it as elegant as possible. Think about it like you're making the best looking wallpaper you possibly can make, and show me what you got. Alright guys, hope this is giving you a good start, and I will be seeing you in the next video.